Hanji, we're looking at each other thinking who's going to introduce it when we're missing the main man. So this is going to be the Udas episode.
It's gone on holiday.
Sarab has gone on holiday.
Normally Sarab keeps us in check.
Normally we plan it and it has a structure. This will just be a conversation between the both of us.
Hopefully not waffle. Hopefully there's still
hopefully we don't
we
waffle.
can
Yeah,
journal.
hopefully there's some. Yeah, exactly. That's how life goes, isn't it? You can't, not everything goes your way sometimes. So it's all good.
Gotta roll with the punches. Matta kare pacham ke tai purab hi le jaat. You decide to go one way, but just destiny or divine intervention takes you another way.
Bilkul. I was thinking of the Sakhi. This isn't a good Purman, but it shows the power of the Gursikhs of Baba Subeg Singh. And Baba, it comes in Gyani Gyan Singh's Panth Prakash. Basically, Baba Subeg Singh, his son Subhas Singh, he's young and he's both tayar bar tayar. Like when I say tayar bar tayar, like it's a saying that we have within the Khalsa Panth of being like ready upon ready, like somebody that's always ready, is good with their nitnem, very like strong pyar with the Guru. The Qazi says to him, like, what is your religion? You worship things that are not living, which obviously isn't the case, but he was saying that. And Baba Subhas Singh looked and he had that pride in his Sikhi. He says to the Qazi that, what is your Makkah? You keep bowing down to your Makkah. What is the point of that? So they capture him, they start beating him up, and they bring his father as well. So when Khan Bahadur gives a command that like beat him up a little bit so he becomes a Muslim, it says in the Sakhi that Odim Matete Likyasi, meaning it was destined that he was going to become a Muslim. As soon as he gets hit one time, he says, Tika, I'll become a Muslim. And Khan Bahadur, even he gets shocked that, whoa, like we've killed so many Sikh women, we've killed so many Sikh men, we've tried to make these people extinct. Not even one of them has ever said it. And the fact that he said it, I'm shocked. And his father finds out. Baba Subeg Singh pata lagda that his son has said this. He goes there and he says, show my son to me. I do not believe this. Sadhu Pratap Singh says in the Upadesh ke, Amideni Sikh son, sachi muchi Sikh. Like they're not like us, we just say we're Sikh. They were actually Andarovi Sikh. And he looked at his son and he says, he saw Mathate Likyaya, he's going to become a Muslim. Gyani Gyan Singh writes, says, Baba Subeg Singh Ji takes some of the tood from his charan, from his foot, and he wipes it on his son's head. And when he wipes it on his head, he then says, no, I do not accept Islam. And then Khan Bahadur asked, how did you do that? And so Pratap Singh says, ke likhi hoi Sikh met sakda hai, je onne de Guru di raja vi hove te. Meaning that a Sikh can change what is predestined only if it is pleasing to his Guru.
Living in England, we don't really know what Turi is until you go to India, like going to the pins. It's such a fine dust.
Yeah.
The question that Khan Bahadur asked, okay, what is your religion? Ustad Gushiji was dropping me off home. I was a kid at this point, like early teens, maybe even pre-teens. And I remember him, and this was outside Sohrad Gurdwara. I still remember it was crazy because the question was so, it was one of those questions. He was like, do you like being a Namdari? And I was like, what do you mean? Because it's never a question that comes up in conversation. You're born into the family that you're born into. You never really question whether you like it or not. You just sort of go with the flow sort of thing. You know? The reflection piece of like, how did I get to this point? And who had a hand in me getting to this point? But if I asked you, John,
it's funny. When you were just saying that, it reminded me of a Sakhi that somebody told me. It wasn't even a Sakhi, it was an observation that they had made from Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji's Upadesh. And Sadhguru Ji says that in the Upadesh, they were giving the Upadesh, and in there they said, Asi Naam Tari. In the recording, there's about like a 30-second gap. And obviously within the recording, it seems like quite a substantial gap. Somebody told me that I was there when Sadhguru Ji was giving that Upadesh. They said, when they said, I am a Naam Tari, they paused for that time. And they said you could see on Sadhguru Ji's chehra that they were doing vichar of, am I worthy of saying this? I had the blessing to be born in a Namdari family into a Sikh parivar. And I think that gives you a lot of values from like just off the bat, right? Like hearing Kirtan Sahila before you go to sleep. But at that time, when growing up in this country, we didn't really understand any of these things. I went very far away from Sikhi as I was growing up. It's funny, my parents tell me that when I was younger, I had a very strong affinity towards Sikhi. Like any kirtan would come on, I would start like shaking my head. So where I am, where I live, my local school, it was like a multicultural like public school. But very close to us, there was Guru Nanak school. And for me, I was like, oh, that's a Sikh school. I've always wanted to learn about Sikhi. Like, that would be brilliant, right? Like for secondary school, I'll go and learn about Sikhi. Unfortunately, it was the complete opposite. This was the first time where I realized, one, that there is Jat Paat. So imagine how counterproductive this is.
At any level, regardless of how far you may think you are from Sikhi, and the way that this conversation just naturally started with that Sakhi, for whatever reason, in his journey, he was in that situation. And in our lives, we sometimes feel like we're far away from Sikhi or close to Sikhi, but really we don't know. And the root of everything is Yasi Guru Nanak Dev Ji bache.
Sometimes my mind is in Chardi Kala. And I feel a connection to Sikhi. I'm doing good in my Nitnem. I feel like I'm great. And then you're gonna have those days where it's like meta pe khiya. It's just the looks.
If you wear Sadhguru Ram Singh Ji's bana or any Sikh pehrawa, hai aya to utthon hi hai. It makes a huge difference to one, what you see kudrati on social media. And then how you speak to people as well, that makes a difference. But I wanted to touch on what you said about, as a kid, just being born into a Sikh family, how just kudrati, just for free, really, you get some of these values of being a Sikh. In the mornings, families would have Nitnem Asadivar, Kirtan or Havans in the mornings, like before 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock at their homes.
Okay.
And what that meant was, it was normally on a weekend where you would have Asadivar. So what you would have is the provider the night before would, like, you'd pack all the sofas to one side, make sure you have enough room in the living room, chadra vishak the night before, asan the sari tiyari karke, and then, in the kitchen as well, langar bhi banna hai. So we had all of these things going on, and I remember my first ever experience with this and seeing my parents doing seva after the program. And I remember my dad filling a warm jug of water, and then in one hand a tolia, and then after langar going around to every single person, and ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਹੱਥ ਉੱਥੇ ਬੈਠੇ ਧਵਾ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਹੱਥ ਪੂੰਝਣੇ. And for a kid to see that, it was like, whoa, this is cool, Hannah. You don't really understand what's happening, but this is something different from the rest of like the world.
Yeah, that nature of actually serving somebody. Aidi seva karni. There's that big element that anybody that comes to your house, they cannot leave, even if it's just a glass of water.
Without having something.
You can't. You have to have something, and I think it's so ingrained. Like we read it every day. Karo benanti sonaho mere mita santa tahal ki bela. And I think it's that thing where it's like when you realize slowly, and as I've become older, it's the values that Guru Nanak Dev Ji has given us, right? I think sometimes we get into this illusion that this Maryada has come from Guru Gobind Singh Ji. I think Guru Gobind Singh Ji just put it into a institution, I would say, and the institution being the Khalsa Panth. But I don't think anything was new in that sense. Like in Gurbani, it talks about keeping your kiss. In Gurbani, it talks about waking up in the morning. In Gurbani, it talks about doing your nitnem. Right? In Gurbani, it talks about following the instructions of your guru. I was watching a show this week. It was called The Victim. And the whole premise of the story is there's a mum and her child at a young age has gone out and has unfortunately been murdered. And her whole life she's got this pure anger built up in her that she wants to find out who done it. Because what ended up happening, because the person that murdered her child, he was young as well, and then he got special accommodations and he got to change his name after he came out of prison. So she never knew where he was, and she thought that was injustice. Cutting a long story short, she goes through this whole turbulence of thinking it was the wrong person, then finding out it was the right person and actually getting to meet him. He tells the full story of what happened, and she's crying, and and then the father of the son comes behind with a knife, about to attack him. And after they have spoken to each other, she stands in front to save him.
What caused her to have a change of mind?
At the end of the episode, it came up with a quote from Rumi. And the quote from Rumi said, "When we go beyond the concept of good and bad, there will be a field. I will meet you there." Everybody, we have our own sampradaya, and we align to a certain sampradaya. Maybe from the way we look or our school of thought, we follow a certain sampradaya. And that's important, right? Because you need a path. And to follow that path is important. There's no point having dujiti in your path. But that doesn't mean other people aren't on a similar path. And it's this thing where if somebody asks me, yes, I'm a Namdari, but it doesn't mean I'm not a Nahang, or I'm not an Udasi, or I'm not a Nirmala, or I'm not any of these other sampradaya, right? And I think that's what Sadhguru Pratap Singh was trying to do when setting up the Nanak Naam Lewa. When Nahang Singhs came, when Taksal Singh we Aisi, all of these different sampradayas came together. And it was that funny thing where I went to a Sikh school, and the first thing that was introduced to me was, "What is your got? What caste are you?" And I remember vividly coming home asking my mum, like, "Mum, what caste am I? I don't even know."
Yeah.
And this was introduced to me in our community. It wasn't introduced to me outside of our community. And I think this is what puts people off sometimes, is where the culture elements creep in, and we actually go away from what Guru Nanak Dev Ji was trying to tell us. And this is where people were saying, "Oh, are you a Namdari?" And then saying negative things about me from that perspective. And in general, look at that culture. In my year, I think there's at least about 3 to 4 people that came into a Sikh school with full case. And by the end, they more nesi. Right? This is the issue with
really,
the culture element, which makes me sad. Whereas when you look at it from purely from a Vidya perspective, which what we should actually be being taught, unfortunately, a lot of it is in Punjabi, and obviously me and you, we've been quite lucky to learn that and have access to those resources. Really, if you want the proper stuff, right, it's in Punjabi.
There's 2 things in there that you said which I want to highlight. One was ki there's Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and then how Sadhguru Gobind Singh Ji institutionalized Sikhi into the Khalsa Panth, right? And then within the Khalsa Panth, then you have cultural influences as well. But if you take the raw Sikhi in the form of Sadhguru Nanak Dev Ji, Kabir Ji says, "Kabir Pungra Ram Allah ka, Sab Gur Peer Hamare." Guru Granth Sahib vich unna di bani matlab ped ho gaye si. There was no difference between them and Guru Nanak Dev Ji, because their bani is right next to Guru Nanak Dev Ji's bani, so there's no difference, right? So we level respect. Right?
And just to quickly interrupt you on that, I hold that thought. Just something I want to add is, look, when we're saying Nanak, when we're saying Guru Nanak, Sadhguru Pratap Singh says very clearly in the Upadesh that Nanak ohaja nahi who came at one day and left at one day. Nanak ਉਹ ਹੈ ਆਦਿ ਵੀ ਸੀ ਵਰਤਮਾਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਆਦਿ ਤੱਕ ਵੀ ਉਹੀ ਹੈ. So when somebody could say, "Oh, Nanak wasn't there during Kabir Ji's time," I don't think we understood who Nanak is. Api ne aap sajo, api ne rachiyo. No. But yeah, carry on your point. Sorry, I just wanted to make that clear.
It's the exploration of what the truth is. Because if scientifically, the time has always existed, then in that case, the truth has always existed. It's not bound to the 14th century and then finishing on the 15th century.
When we say that, then we go against what we read every day. Na ohomare, na hove sold.
We're putting it in a box.
Yeah, we boxed it.
This has contained it.
Yeah.
But it was 100%. That thing what you said about having labels to things. This is good, this is right, this is bad, this is wrong. When we start doing that, it's very difficult to try and get out of that very constrained or confined mindset. If Kabir Ji and Sadhguru Nanak Dev Ji are agreeing with this, Sadhguru Arjan Dev Ji, who have compiled it, are agreeing with the fact that Kabir Pungra Ram Allah ka, Sab Gur Peer Hamare. Then, like you say, I am a Nirmala, I am a Udasi, I am a Nahang.
And I think studying by Gurdas Ji is really important. For those that don't know, by Gurdas Ji, none of their Bani is contained within the Sriyad Guru Granth Sahib. But they penned a lot of it with Guru Arjan Dev Ji Pasha. And Bhai Gurdas Ji receives a var that your writings are the key to understand this. And in those vars, it says, Hari Chand te Tara Rani. And it's a prasang. And this is way before Guru Nanak Dev Ji's time. I think it's Satjog, Hanji. In the var, it says, Sukhraje Hari Chand Karnar Sotara Lochan Rani. And then the next line, what it says, Sad Sangat Mil Gavde Rati Jai Sone Gurbani. It's Gurbani di gal ho rahi hai. So what Gurbani is being referred to here, at this point, Japji Sahib doesn't even exist. At this point, Guru Nanak Dev Ji avatar ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਤਾਰਿਆ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ. So I think we need to demystify this concept, and I think it's a big element of colonialism which has actually made us misunderstand actually what the concept of a guru is. We get scared of the word guru. Oh, don't accidentally say guru to something that isn't a guru. When Gurbani is saying so Satgur, jis hriday har now. Even when we read it, Sukhamani Sahib, if somebody tell me what the difference between a Brahmgyani and a guru is, because if there's a difference between a Brahmgyani and a guru, then I've completely misunderstood Gurbani. Right? Ja jithe saad di koi gal ho rahi hai, antarjami purkh bidate sarda man ki pure nanak das eh sukh mage mauka kar ਸੰਤਨ ਕੀ ਤੂਰੇ ਹਨਾ ਇੱਥੇ ਸੰਤ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਭਾਵ ਹੈ ਮੇਰੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਨਾਲ ਇੱਥੇ ਸੰਤ ਦਾ ਭਾਵ ਹੈ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਐਂਡ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਸਾਧ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਕੋਈ ਆਂਦਾ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਬ੍ਰਹਮ ਗਿਆਨੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ where anywhere where it's talking about a sant, a saint, where it's talking about a Braham Gyani, meaning somebody that has understood and gone beyond this illusion, they've reached that avastha. Demystifying this or going back to pre-colonialism, actually, what were the Sikhs saying at that time? What was the concept of a guru in the Sikhs? I think this needs to be studied 100%. And we've been quite lucky. Like there was a book that you mentioned to me as well,
Guru Nirna, Rajinder Singh Nirala.
It's quite interesting, and I think it's food for thought. We're not trying to say to anybody or go against anybody's school of thought, because I think this is inclusive of everything. Gyani Sant Indrajit Singh Ji says this, that if you've gone down the route of Sikhi and never understood or never gone down trying to understand Advait, then really you haven't really started. Because Gurbani starts from Advait. Ik, you can say the meaning of ik is Advait, meaning from 2 to 1.
When you actually start doing Khoj, when you start actually reading Gurbani, and you start asking yourself the questions, when you start understanding it, you kind of figure out it's talking about me, and it's being introspective to me. It's not asking me to point fingers at anybody, and it's not that thing. And that's when you can have productive conversations about how can we follow Gurbani more, and how can we live it truthfully instead of just doing 100%. Like fake prachar.
Yeah. Like we don't need to agree on everything. Like you don't need to. Like apart from if it's Gurbani, for us in terms of levels, that is the ultimate truth.
Taking a step back, so what made you stay, or like what made you keep going down at this path?
That's the funny bit. I don't think I did. When you're young, you're going to have less people that are telling you to read Gurbani and do your Nityanim. Like, as you're young, you want to just play with your friends, right? Or you want to be aligned to what is happening at the culture at that time. So
Call of Duty,
Call of Duty, all these kind of things. Yeah. So at that time, when your beard starts coming in, if all of your friends at that time, and this is the fickleness of the mind, but if all of your friends at that time are not, I don't have that affinity, and this is the importance of sangat, right? Because there's susangat, kusangat, and satsangat. Meaning, if you have people that lead you down the good path, then you're very lucky in life. But most of the time, if you meet somebody like me, like we talk about sangat, but I was the one leading people down the wrong path. Like it wasn't ever somebody like influencing me. Just I had that sense of rebellion, and I always thought I had that arrogance of I thought I was right, and what that led me down was that I don't really think there's God, and I didn't really understand what Sikhi was. And being a Namdari added a whole another element to that, because that confused me as well, that everybody else believes in one way and we believe it in another way. What's that all about? And it was that lack of knowledge, and I think that's why knowledge is so important. But Chalo, that was what was destined for me. Then what happened, Sadhguru Dev Singh Ji came to the UK for the first time. My mum, she always had a very strong Nityanim. And that had a big impact on us. But there was a time where we didn't understand that, to be honest, and we confused me personally. But my mum always used to tell us that I don't care whatever you do in life, but you have to be a Sikh.
Yeah.
And we would always remember our mum said that to us. Do anything, I don't care, but be a Sikh. And we was lucky I had a mother like that. And my mum, she would sit near us when we wouldn't ever wake up. And she would sit next to us, keep Jal near us, near them while she was doing Naam Simran. And she would give us that water. So we was lucky we ate homemade food, another element of Sikhi, that we ate that homemade food and it had that influence. And when Sadhguruji came, I didn't want to go, to be honest. I was very adamant that I wasn't going. And my mum literally shouted at me that you are going. After that, nobody ever had to say anything to me. There's an element where we have this very stone-like heart, and even the Guru can melt that. And Sadhguru just looked at me and it changed my life, genuinely. And this is a point where I had no clue, no affinity with Sikhi. I had started cutting my beard, started doing loads of other stuff as well. And then at that point, it gave me this, it didn't give me answers, but it gave me questions. I thought I was sure I had answers to those questions, but I started doubting my answers. And I started asking myself those questions that, well, why am I actually here on earth? Like, why was I born? Like, what is this human life? Is this life that I'm just going to go to school now, then I'll go uni, then I'll get married, and then I'll have kids, and I'll tell them to do the same thing all over again? Is that really life?
Yeah.
And that put me off as well. I thought, well, there's no point in that either, really. So I started feeling, and it's funny, we think it's all like roses and like flowers when we talk about Sikhi, but I was quite like, it shook me to my core. Like my whole like foundation of what I thought life was shaken. And luckily at that time I started reading Sadhguru Pratap Singh Ji's Upadesh, because I started asking loads of people questions. And as we know, like accessing that in English, this is around 2012, 2013 time. So I didn't have access to anything really in English. And I couldn't read Gurmukhi at that time. Hearing Sadhguruji's Upadesh changed my life.
Some people might think, how is that even possible? You see somebody and it completely changes your life. And I was reading Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Puratan Janamsakhi. And Sadhguru Nanak Dev Ji, they go to Bangladesh and they go to Dhaka. And it was known as like the Dakkuwada Ilaka. A thief named Bhumia comes to Guru Nanak Dev Ji. He's seen Sadhguru Nanak Dev Ji have influenced so many people's lifestyles, and they've completely changed. And now they're living more pious in lifestyles, taking them away from duality and connecting them to the one. And Bhumia says to Sadhguru Nanak Dev Ji, ki, there's no way I'm going to give up being a thief. Ki, is there anything else that you can help me with, Hannah? And Sadhguru Nanak Dev Ji says, Chalo, if you can't stop being a thief, then do these 3 things. And Sadhguru Nanak Dev Ji says, anybody that you've eaten salt from, never badmouth them. Duji gal ki, never intentionally hurt or seek to harm somebody that's poorer than you. And the third was, always tell the truth. So he's like, "Chalo theek hai. I can still be a thief. I'll rob the king.
I'll do these things. Yeah.
yeah. I'll rob the rich, sort of like a Robin Hood kind of deal. And I'll rob the rich. I won't lie. And kisi da mada nahi kahunga jo tumhe namak khada." And he gets to a point where he's literally robbed the king, and somebody else gets caught for his crime, and he sees somebody that's less well off than him is being sentenced to death, and his core values then had changed in to that point ki sach da saath dena, ki bure naal main burai nahi hon deni. And so he offers himself up ki nahi main galat kita siga. And then this is how like Sadhguru Nanak Dev Ji transformed people's lives. Otherwise he would have just
100%. Yeah, we look at Qazi Rukunuddin, that like how Sadhguruji changes their life, Sajjan Thag. That Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Udasiyan is filled with how Sadhguruji transformed people, and how they had that power. I think that is the true kotak of the Guru. We say, can the Guru show a kotak? I think the kotak becomes you because when I think nobody could convince me otherwise. And till this day, Apaji, being honest with you, I was going to say between us, but this is going to go out there. So between a lot of other people, I get shocked that happened. I get shocked that I still feel that asharaj, that how did somebody with such a kathor dil, how did Sadhguruji melt that and allowed it to become a vastu that wanted knowledge? And the next bit I wanted to go on to with you was around the importance of the people that help you on this path.
I was just thinking the same thing. Being in secondary school, I was around. We didn't have a lot of namtaris, but we had a lot of Singhs in my secondary school, and I learned Punjabi in a non-namtari. Like I learned Punjabi at Sarod Gurdwara, just down the road, and being in that environment with those kind of people and seeing how much like love and pyar that they had for Gurbani, and like seeing people like as part of our curriculum, as part of learning Punjabi, we would have to go and do Jodyan di Seva.
Amazing.
So you're there with like your friends, your classmates, peers, doing Jodyan di Seva. And then, I remember like seeing how their appearance, like unhone dadi case rakhe hunde sige, matlab sabat sroop vich. And then you never really, because again, to your point, it depends on who you socialize with and impacts or affects a lot of the decisions that you make. And I was quite lucky in that sense. It was always on the weekend. We were at the Gurdwara doing because of Punjabi class, Punjabi now, how much value I got out of learning Punjabi, because again, I wasn't the brightest kid at school. So my A-levels was just a sham. I've still got my report somewhere, and it's got a bunch of E's and C's in there. If I got a C, that was a lucky one. It wasn't good, right? But only because of Punjabi. So I had a GCSE, and then I did an A-level in Punjabi, because it was like, we speak Punjabi, we can read it. It's just free A-level and a free UCAS points. But it was proper structured. So I got an A-level from Punjabi, and Punjabi is the only reason I got into university, because I got enough UCAS.
Oh, so that's what, you told me this before. That's what got you the UCAS points, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So I can never bayan nahi kar sakta ki how much indebted I am to just being in that environment.
Just a Punjabi, and
just Punjabi, and because of Punjabi, then you realize afterwards ki, as I grew older, and I'm sure you're the same. You financially you invest in books and like other literature which you think will enlighten you in some way. But because we'd learned Punjabi, it was like, well, why don't we have a read through what we have for free? So the Babbe ne inni mehnat kiti hai to write all of this. Let's give that a go.
Letters for us, and all these love letters. I think was it you that said it, or somebody told it to you in this way, is that imagine somebody told you that your great granddad, they found these letters that they had written. Like how much other than pyar nal we would open those letters to see what were they thinking at that time.
That's beautiful.
And this is what Gurbani is for the Sikh, but even beyond this dunyavi rishta. So imagine how much you would times that feeling when a Sikh reads Gurbani with that bhavna. And that's why I get really sad when people say, that we don't have that respect for Gurbani. That I would say you've never met us then. Our whole life is Gurbani. Like we can't, like if you said that, like sada ta kuch rahi nahi jana Gurbani to bina. That's the same from Guru Nanak Dev Ji's time. Even prior to that, without Gurbani, what is a Sikh really? The Guru is there to guide you, but the Bani is there to connect you.
The ultimate is to become one with the Almighty, Hannah. If on this journey aapa is gal ch fas gaye ki I want to create my own identity, fir wo gal nahi banne ki tu karta tu hua. Like you say, ki if you take Gurbani out of our being, fir to kuch rehna hi nahi hai na. There's no 100%. There's no Juan, there's no asa left. It's just nothing then, Hana.
Purane Sikh kehinde hunde se Bani Bana Pank Pashano, Singh Guru ka Pankhi Jano. That there was always this element of even this discipline that we bring within, which is needed within Sikhi, of wearing barna, being sabat surat, amra shakike, keeping rahat. The reason why that's important isn't because somebody is telling you or a Sikh is telling you. It's because that is what your guru gave you. And it goes back to that thing of imagine how much adab you would hold if something was given to you that was that old and had that much meaning attached to it. That's what gives it power, really. But sorry, I interrupted you. So you were saying something.
No, it's a good transition, because if you take that analogy of like your great grandfather wrote this for you, maybe like reading it initially you wouldn't really understand what it meant, and this is like when I was growing up, secondary school, I remember hearing a shabad recited by Ragi Baljit Singh Ji, and it was Sadhguru Gobind Singh Ji's Bani, and it wasn't like it's poetry, and like you realize afterwards when somebody explains it to you, it's poetry. And Sadhguru Gobind Singh Ji are describing the sounds that they heard during the battle, and it's Chagardan Nagardan Bagardan Baje Chagardan Baje, Gagardan Gaje. And I remember asking my dad, what does this mean? And it sounds so cool listening to it. What does it mean? And my dad said, like, we're going to meet Subhas Lakhan Singh Ji, because there was a program in Birmingham, Hole Mahalleda, and all the Sangat was getting together. And my dad said, let's go ask Subhaji. And I remember that was the first ever time I'd spoken to Subhaji, and I felt nervous as well. And I don't know this guy, but I'm asking them about this Gurbani, something that I just enjoyed listening to. And Subhaji explained it. This is what I mean, and then it opens your mind and like, whoa! I said, Gurbani since he wrote this,
100%.
And then it led to more conversations with Subhaji about, because then in Birmingham, Ustad Gurshan Singh Ji would have Kirtan classes on a Thursdays, and so I had the opportunity to learn from them. And like one of the first shabads, like you heard from Ustad Kirpal Singh Ji, is Bisar gayi sabdaad parai, hai na, jab te saath sangat mohi pai. That's the first ever shabad you learn, but then learning its meaning as well is so profound, and it has an influence. But
even that, when you realize, there's this Bani that even Guru Gobind Singh Ji has written, and that comes from the one you was referring to, Chandi Charitra Dusra. I just want to look at the beauty of it, right? Sangeet Pujang Priyat Shand. Kagardang Kati Katari Kadakang, Tagardang Tirang, Topakkak Tadakang, Chagardang Nagardang, Bagardang Baje, Gagardang Gaji, Mahagaja Gaji. Look, it's just beautiful, like the way Sadhguruji's written that, and it's like you're saying, it's the sound of these swords and this weaponry as it is hitting each other in this warfare, which Sadhguruji is explaining. Kagardi kaati katadi kadakang tagardang tirang tupakkak tadakang. It's just amazing.
It's such a poet, and at such a, like, even Sadhguru Gobind Singh Ji's life is so inspiring. At very young age, they're being put into a position. So let's take them out, like away from this podium. But if we reflect on the fact that a child has now become responsible for a whole panth and leading that panth against oppression, and then having time to fight, be a poet, be a father, be a guru, and all of these different roles. I struggle with being a husband and a son. And they're doing
it shows it shows that only the Almighty can do it. So that's when we have to put them back on the pedestal. Where you realize actually you can't even do it without it. But it's beautiful. But I hope this is coming across from this conversation of this excitement you start feeling from what you've learned. And we've been very lucky to have Vidya Gurus like Subhas Lakhan Singh Ji, like Sant Satnam Singh Ji, like Sant Nishan Singh Ji, that and Sadhguruji aap vi out of their very busy time, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ. They've blessed us a lot. Before I go into my next question, I just want to ask around your journey of translating Gurbani and how, like, some of the anecdotes from that as well.
That question always makes me laugh, because I don't have any qualification that would render me capable of being able to translate Gurbani. And the one updesh that comes to mind when I reflect on this experience of being given the opportunity to do it is Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji saying, and it's a very, like, emotional upadesh that Sach Paatshah Ji gave ki ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੇਰਾ ਪਰਿਵਾਰ ਆ ਐਂਡ ਮੈਂ ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਹਰ ਇੱਕ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦਾ ਸੁੱਖ ਮਿਲੇ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਜਸਟ ਥਰੂ ਫॉर ਬੈਨੇਵੋਲੈਂਸ ਦਇਆ ਕਰਕੇ ਕਿ ਆਸੇ ਦਾ ਭਲਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਏ ਜਦ ਮੇਰੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਭਲਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਏ ਕਿ ਕਿਸੇ ਤੱਕ ਮਤਲਬ ਕਿਸੇ ਬਹਾਨੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸਮਝਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਨ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਕਿ ਬੀਇੰਗ ਏਬਲ ਟੂ ਟ੍ਰਾਂਸਲੇਟ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ I think it was more for me than for anybody else. Otherwise, I don't think I probably would have read it. Koi bahana nahi banna si. There would have been no reason. And it was, you know, Sukhmani Sahib is where it started. And Sukhmani Sahib is such a different, the way that it's written is so different in comparison to Jap Sahib, for example. It's a complete contrast where Jap Sahib is talking about the Nirgun. But Sukhmani Sahib is talking about the Sargun.
It's pure Sargun,
pure Sargun. And for anybody that, you know, isn't aware of Nirgun and Sargun, Nirgun being the formless, the unfathomable, the unreachable, whereas the Sargun is the form, the one that you can talk to, the sadhu, the saint. And
what you can see, what you can see.
What you can see, what you can interact with. There's no difference between a sadhu and a Akal Purakh. They are one. I know. And so that journey of reading Sukhmani Sahib and trying to understand what it meant led to conversations like the first Ashtapadi, for example, having a guru, having their insight into what it means. Sadhguru Nanak Dev Ji says, Prabhu ka simran kal parhara, Prabhu ka simran dusmantara. And the translations that we had access to at the time translated Prabhu ka simran dusmantara to when you are contemplating God, all of your enemies, all of the people that you hate in life are shunned away from your life. And reflecting on this Gurbani tuk with Sacha Paatshah Ji, with Sadhguru Ji took a pause and they said, that doesn't really sound right to me, because within Sikh philosophy, there are no enemies. Sare to mere Prabhu de banaye hoye hai. And this is like from the perspective of an ashik.
Allah noor upaya kudrat ke sab bande ek noor te sab jag upja kaun pale ko mande.
Exactly that. And Sacha Paatshah Ji is saying kaun pale ko mande hai na. With that perspective in mind, the only real enemy then is the mind. And so Sacha Paatshah Ji said ki by contemplating, by remembering something so pure, the Almighty, ਫਿਰ ਸਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਦੁਸ਼ਮਣ ਹੈ ਸਾਡਾ ਦੁਸ਼ਟ ਮਨ the enemy of the mind, that because you're focusing on something else and you're not thinking about the negative, the hatred, the jealousy.
If you go Kanchi, people won't teach you if you're not a Brahmin. They won't even accept you as a student, like especially us, right? We're considered lower class to them. Where Sadhguru Ji blesses the Khalsa Panth with all of this knowledge. And the same with the Chritropakyaan, where this is what a prince or a Kumar would receive as knowledge before becoming a king. These are all of the different types of situations people have gotten into, learn from them. So this is why I find it funny where people are saying that, oh, why is Sadhguru Ji saying these vulgar things? And it's not even vulgar. Like, it's your mind thinking it's vulgar. This is life. Right? You see this every day. Really, if you look at it from a pure sense, it's just an observation of life. And really, out of all of that, and why I found it so funny, because the Prachalit version of Jope that people have access to is actually not the full version, right? And actually, the last stanza or the last meter of that, or the ending, where Sadhguru Ji signs the Bani off, it says, Ittasri Chritropakyaan. Meaning, Jope is the end of Chritropakyaan. Meaning, Sadhguru Ji writes these 405 Charita. And then at the end, Sadhguru Ji says, I've told you about all these Charita now. Now, offer your ardas to the one to save me. Meaning, you don't have the power to save yourself from these things. Huh? And that's why I always found it funny that something that we read daily to save us from those charitars, we're saying, oh, that charitar is not Bani, but the actual Chope, which is from that Bani, is something we read to save us, which is quite ironic. But yeah, this is where Sadhguru is saying, It Sri Chritropakyaan, Triya Charitra, Mantri Poop Sambade, 405 Charitra Samapat Mast. And this is where Sadhguruji is signing off that Bani. And the kind of the ultimate point I wanted to make was where Sadhguruji blessed the Khalsa Panth with these different pieces of knowledge, is they wanted the Sikh to read it. Right? They blessed us with it. They wanted us to study it, and they wanted us to understand it. And going back to what you were saying, the importance of a teacher, that your teacher opens your eyes to these things, whether that is in the form of Gurbani, where Sadhguruji Jagatjit Singh Ji made, I would say, the most beautiful compositions of Dasambani. Chakra chehna arbar najat arapat nahna jeh, like Sadhguruji or Novi Reet Band Kardene, Sadhguruji has a bandish from Jap Sahib, and loads of Dasambani where Sadhguruji makes bandisha.
So who influenced you at the point where you needed it?
I wanted my mind to join in Naam Simran, because I'd read all these Sakhis of how Guru Ram Singh Ji would give Naam to a Sikh, and how they would be in Anand. And I was like, I want a bit of that. And then that's what first led me to Subhas Lakhan Singh Ji. I said, I want to learn from somebody that knows how to do Naam Simran properly. And Subhas says, oh, there's somebody called Sant Satnam Singh Ji. You can learn from them. They're the only one I know who you can learn from in the UK. And still after that, I didn't know who it was, right? Because I didn't know anybody in the Sangha at that time. And then what happened was I was staying with Raja. Unfortunately, when I was there, I was staying the night, their grandma passed away. And I was only planning to stay there for a day or two. And what I later on realized is Raja's grandma and Sant Satnam Singh Ji, they were brother and sister. And this is then how I get to meet Sant Satnam Singh. They used to like really make us realize what Sikhi is. And they said, Thada pyar pakka hai ya kaccha hai? Tera pyar kaccha hai? I'm like kaccha hai. And we would start thinking, oh, is our pyar kaccha? And they would ask us those questions that were tough questions.
Yeah.
When are you waking up? What Barney are you reading? What Nitnem are you doing? How are you doing your Nitnem? Mandala Grea Nitnem. They would ask those questions that nobody else asked. And I didn't unfortunately during COVID period, or chadai kar ge san, like Sadhguru says, O Brahm Gyani san, was very lucky, very lucky.
There's one question that comes to mind, and I remember we were both there together staying the night, and it was for Subhaji's Havan, that we were going to do a Havan at their house. And I think the night before, we didn't wake up before Amrit Vela, but the morning that we were meant to wake up for Subhaji's Havan, we were up and like ready, to go to the house and do it. When we got back, we got back to Sanji's house, and they were like, "Let me ask you a question." And then they sat us down and they said, "Okay, why was it that for somebody else you woke up in Niyat Shana with such vigor to do a Havan? Why can't you do that for yourself?"
What made it even more like a stab in the heart was, why can't you do that for your guru?
Yeah.
And
why can't you do that for your guru?
And they used to ask those questions that used to, like, you'd be smiling and you'd go like, oh man. So yeah, they kept us honest. They definitely kept us honest. Hopefully one day we can live up to what they taught us.
They were completely steadfast, like in their routine.
100%.
In their routine, they were 100%. That every single day, same time, with the same passion. Passion was the one word that comes to mind when you think of them. Yeah, no matter what,
even if it killed them, they would still get up. Like there was times where they told me, because they had health issues, I won't go into detail, but it was a struggle for them to move a lot, like without struggling to catch their breath.
They never complained.
And they never complained. And somebody like us, thoda ja sir dukhan lag janda, and we're like, oh, chalo, we'll go sleep a little bit longer.
We'll get chutti.
We get chutti. Like Sadhguruji won't mind, we had a headache. Whereas Sanji weren't like that. Sanji wasn't like that. So yeah, I think that Amrita Vela element.
Somebody might think, well, you know, why is Amrita Vela so important?
I think waking up early, like even now, because of the way society is, people are waking up early, like for work. People wake up early for work. They're waking up for work, but waking up for your guru is a whole different ball game. Because for us, with those with fickle minds, you can't see it. Whereas Santaji and these of elevated beings, they actually, they actually do that kamai, and that true kamai, which isn't of money but of naam.
If you can see people practically walking that path and living it, and like, you know, health condition wise, they weren't in the best of conditions, but they were always so content. Jo Malik ne ditta vadiya aaya. And then you know, then you read things like Jo tud paave sahi palikar. They lived that then, Hana, ki Jo Malik kar raha, theek kar raha. Then you're like,
that's why I think you need to see it. Gurbani. You need to see it. In one of Guru Ram Singh Ji's Hukamname, Saguruji themselves say that I need to see it to believe it. Guru Ram Singh Ji says this actually in one of the Hukamname. And then Saguruji relates this to Guru Balak Singh Ji. And Sachi Pashi says, I didn't receive any sukh prior to seeing Guru Balak Singh Ji. Only until I met Guru Balak Singh Ji and they gave me naam. And this is what made me achieve ultimate sukh. Sadhguruji khod Akal Purkh san, but they showed us that this was the path. And this is why meeting these sadhus, like that's why I asked that question to Pali Ragi of how did you memorize Gurbani? Because I wanted to hear it, so it makes me feel shameful. So I know that it's possible. So that I learn more Gurbani Kant. Sant Satnam Singh Ji, I saw them out of more difficulties, doing way more and doing everything on point. What excuse do I have them? We have Subaji. They've out through a very busy work life. They're still reading Gurbani. They're still studying Gurbani. They're still doing the everything. That is an example. Then the ultimate example, obviously for us, is Sadhguruji. You need that. You need a person who has achieved more to guide you. And I think that's true in all examples, like beyond spirituality.
Look at work, right? For example, you have a manager for one. And aside from your manager, you have a buddy that you can always talk to get like insight into how the company works. Even like to go to with your stupid questions, Anna. You know, your buddy's not going to judge you. So having there's always a knowledge article available somewhere on the internet, right? But it's just so much easier to ping somebody like, you know, how does this work? It's a bit of a shortcut. That's all it is. We're not, not saying any one way is wrong or right.
Maybe other people experience, I don't know if it aligns to what we're saying or not. If it does, let us know. If it doesn't, also let us know. But yeah, I think it's that what is the worst that can happen by trying to walk on this path? What keeps me coming back is when I hear how the people that lived the lifestyle of a Sikh went to their guru and learned something, how the way of them actioning or the way of them doing things was so unique. That always inspires me. When we read Anand Sahib Bhagata Ki Chal Nirali, that I think it makes me thirsty for that niralapan, of that uniqueness of the Sikh.
Having been born in a Namdhari family, for somebody to share with us other examples of Nirali Sikh and how they their perspectives using, you know, how they leveraged the Sikh philosophy, how they saw this life, that I would incredibly welcome that to learn from these other Nirali Sikh who have, there's been loads, there's been many.
What keeps you connected to Sikhi? What keeps you coming back daily?
The honest answer is I don't know anything else. Like I have not explored Islam to the depths that I have Sikhi. I've not explored Christianity to the same depth, but having spoken to people who are Christian and Muslim, I remember having a conversation with somebody on a plane who was Muslim, and he said to me something along the lines of, only if you become a Muslim can you go to heaven. And then contrasting that with Sikh philosophy, which says you can become Jivan Mukt, you don't need to die even to get to heaven.
No, he even says I don't want heaven. Screw heaven, I don't want
it. Then it gets to the conversation of love, है ना, फिर आशिक दी गल आ जाती है, राज ना चाहो मुक्त ना चाहो मन प्रीत चरण कमला रे, कि that's all I want is to be with my beloved. And that's so then, you know, things like
So
that.
I think it's the prema bhakti that brings you back. I guess it's that prema bhakti.
The fact that we can openly acknowledge that everybody is ours. Na ko bari, na hai begana. Sagla sang humko banai. We have no, like, it's that concept of live and let live.
Yeah. Ai panthi sagal jamati man jeete jag jeet. Meaning all my brothers on this path. And I think that's why using the word panth instead of the word mazhab is so important. That what Sadhguruji prescribed to us was a panth. It's a path. It's not something which you prescribe to, and it's like a Netflix subscription where then and then you receive something at the end of it. You actually have to make an effort.
Chhe kara, chhe guru, chhe upadesh, guru eko, ves anek. Guru eko hi hai. Every religion says the same thing. Hai ki ekko hi guru hai. Ekko hi akal purkh hai.
In Jap Sahib it says, Ek Moorat, Anek Darshan, Keen Roop, Anek, Khel, Akhel Khelan, Ant Go Fir Ek. All this drama that we're seeing of multiplicity and then unity, really at the end of it, it's just one.
There's no like beating around the bush. It's not complicated. This is how it is. And then from that simplicity is that beauty. And then from that beauty is like, then I don't need anything else.
100%.
If something, the fact that, Sadhguru Jagjit Singh Ji said, we have to prescribe to the fact that through Sikhi we can have world peace. And I genuinely believe that. If somebody can prescribe to the fact ki na ko bari na hai begana sagla sang humko banai, then you wouldn't have chagda ki hai, ladai ka diya. It's all these insecurities and oh mein to aana khole, like whereas Sadhguru Nanak Dev Ji says ki apne hak da daan karo, ki donate from what you think you own.
Dusre de hak di rakhi karo. I think even if we just prescribe to that, all of the world's issues would end in a second. So I think once
the
you prescribe
conflict
to that,
is about land, Hanaki. This is my land. This is your land.
It's these false notions, right? It's all these false notions that we have, which unfortunately have crept within us. I just wish we could get beyond this one day. A channel and somebody, 2 videos actually I would want to recommend is a YouTube channel called Mangalacharan. Mangalacharan is by the same person that is running the Suraj podcast, Jwala Singh. I haven't even ever spoken to Jwala Singh. I don't even know him. But just based on the work that he's done, there was 2 videos. One was about the meaning of Ikonkar, and he talks about the paradox of it. And that was a beautiful video. We'll put it in the description of this on the YouTube channel. And the other video was Brahm Bichar by Sant Indrajit Singh Ji. 2 beautiful videos. I think every Sikh should understand the contents of those videos to understand the core tenets of Guru of the Guru's Panth and Guru Nanak Dev Ji.
So this is now probably the point at which Sarah would be like, and asking us if we've done our homework, basically, if we've got our fun fact. So, Jawan Singh, start with you.
Well, yeah, this is where we realize I didn't do the homework. Somebody said to me at work, and they said they were talking about the dynamics of different relationships in work and why conflict happens. And they said a quote to me, which was, where there is competition, there can be no collaboration.
Oh, I like that.
And I like that. And where there's competition, there's no collaboration. And I think that kind of also summarizes what we was talking about, and also a good thing to implement.
The guy who invented the Frisbee, his name was Walter Frederick Morrison. And after he died, he was turned into a Frisbee.
You're joking.
I need to verify this.
Wait, you sure? I think you need to Google that a little bit.
So Walter Frederick Morrison, the inventor of the Frisbee, was cremated in 2010, and his ashes were turned to a Frisbee
the ashes.
family.
Okay, man, what the image I had created in my mind? Yeah, the image I had created in my mind was a bit crazy. Chalo, Sat Sri Akal.